Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 131. Ignorance is Blissey. The episode begins with Ash and the gang arriving in a town known as Happy Town, tired, hungry, and dirty, with extremely sore feet, looking for a place to spend the night. Eventually, they stumble across a Pokemon Center, and Ash and the gang run for it, utterly desperate for a place to rest. But, unfortunately, when Ash knocks on the door, he finds that it's locked, even as he screams for Nurse Joy to answer. No one comes to the door, aside from a Blissey. The Blissey rushes out of the Pokemon Center, seeing in how much of a panic Ash and the gang seem to be in, and accidentally knocked Ash over in the process. As he got back up, he realized that he's never seen a Blissey before, only a Chansey, and uses his Pokedex, which tells him that Blissey was in fact the evolution of Chansey, along with the fact that it was kind-hearted and loved helping people. Brock makes notice of Blissey's weird ears, finding it odd that the Pokedex didn't mention them, as Ash's stomach then begins to growl, reinforcing the fact that he was extremely hungry. Blissey hears this and immediately gets to work on preparing some food for Ash and the gang, wanting to treat them. After a short time, Blissey returns to Ash and the gang with mounds and mounds of sweets and other delicacies that she's cooked up, all stacked on a whole bunch of food trays. She's so excited to help Ash and the gang that the food trays start shaking, and Ash and the gang get worried that they're going to fall, so they try to run away from the table, but unfortunately, Ash still gets doused by all the food that lands on him, since he fell when he was running, only further startling the Blissey. Ash proceeds to go into the Pokemon Center showers so he can wash off all of the food. However, Blissey felt bad, so she offered to help him clean it off by scrubbing his back. She used a very large broom, though, and went a little overkill on the scrubbing, so it caused Ash's back to develop a huge sore, after only a few seconds of scrubbing. He screams out in pain, leading Brock and Misty to come in and lay him down on the bed. Blissey rushes into the bedroom as well, and tries to apologize to Ash for causing him so much pain, and tries to help him heal the wound by applying some rubbing alcohol. She puts a bit too much on, though, causing Ash even more pain, and making the sore become even bigger, meaning Ash now had to bandage up pretty much the entirety of his upper body. As a result of all this screaming, most likely, Nurse Joy wakes up, revealing that she was just sleeping the whole time. This Pokemon Center wasn't just run by a Blissey like you may have originally thought. She goes to check on Blissey to make sure that she was handling everything okay on her own, but when she finds Blissey, she also finds Ash covered in bandages, which causes her to scream, just as loud as Ash did. As soon as Nurse Joy enters, Ash and the gang try to explain to her what Blissey had been doing, but Brock cuts them off, simply trying to flirt with Nurse Joy instead. But thankfully Misty drags him off, allowing Ash to explain what happened, and Nurse Joy proceeds to apologize, explaining that Blissey didn't have any ill intent, it just wanted to be the best nurse it could be, but it was kinda bad. Nurse Joy then instructs that Ash and the gang get some sleep, as it was getting pretty late. I mean, she was woken up from her sleep, and Ash and the gang go to bed as she asks, but they realize that they never actually got to eat any food, much to their dismay, as they were still starving. Ash and the gang weren't the only ones that were starving, but Team Rocket, being the poor fucks that they were also starving. So, James came up with a plan to break into the Pokemon Center and steal its food supply, along with some Pokemon for Giovanni, of course, because if they got that promotion, then maybe they would never go hungry ever again. So, they proceed to sneak in by going through an opening in the floor somehow, and find themselves in the center's empty kitchen. They check around the room, but can't find any food anywhere, not even in the bathroom sink or in the trash can, obvious places where food would be, you know? Nah, I'm joking obviously, but they are unable to find any food, aside from one little piece of parsley that Meowth finds in the fridge. And since there was only one piece, he's like, fuck this, I'm not sharing it with you guys, and tries to run off with it on his own, much to Team Rocket's anger, as Jessie tries to chase after him. She runs out of the kitchen into the hallway, where she spots Blissey up ahead, who was making her rounds, so she tries to turn back, but it was too late, as Blissey had already stopped her and proceeded to tackle her to the ground. Jessie initially got angry with the Blissey, believing that it was trying to attack her, obviously, but then she realized that the Blissey seemed happy to see her, and actually tackled her from joy. She then notices half of an egg necklace around Blissey's neck, and realizes that she had the other half in her pocket, and this causes her to remember that she actually knew this Blissey, a memory that she had tried to repress, due to the traumatic past that went with it. Repressing the memory due to bad events that were associated with Blissey didn't mean that she didn't like Blissey, though. Her and Blissey used to be great friends, so she connects her half of the egg necklace to Blissey's, and takes Blissey to a dining room, along with James and Meowth, wanting to catch up with her old friend. Meowth and James had practically never seen Jessie this happy before at being reunited with Blissey, and they ask what made their friendship so special, leading Jessie to explain their backstory. Essentially, from a young age, Jessie always wanted to be a nurse, but she was never good enough to be a normal nurse, so she was suggested by some of her teachers to enroll in a Chansey nursing school, even though several other teachers were heavily against this, as a human enrolling in a school only for Pokemon made no sense, and would obviously affect Jessie's well-being, and it clearly did, because look how she ended up, but as soon as Jessie looked up more information on the Chansey Nursing School by finding a whole bunch of flyers, she eventually decided to take half of her teacher's suggestions into account, deciding that she was going to enroll in the Chansey Nursing School. She initially regretted this, obviously, due to not being able to fit in with any of the Chansey, but there was an upside, being that she was able to stand out more, and she proved to be one of the most competent nurses at the Chansey Nursing School, just because a lot of the Chansey were a lot worse than a lot of the humans. Her being better than a lot of the Chansey also allowed her the opportunity to actually befriend one of them, being the Blissey today. This Blissey, unlike Jessie, was an extremely incompetent nurse, not being able to even wrap bandages or read a lot of the study books necessary. So Jessie taught her how to read, wrap bandages, helped her carry food trays, and just learn how to overall care for people better. Unfortunately, though, Jessie had one weakness, which was that she would always fall asleep when she was supposed to be singing sick and injured Pokemon to sleep herself, because when all of the other Chansey would put the Pokemon to sleep by singing them, Jessie would fall asleep as well, not being able to resist the sing. Due to not being able to accomplish one of the most important duties of her job, which was being able to put Pokemon to sleep, she decided to quit. Dropping out of the Chansey nursing school before graduation, only sneaking into the graduation to see her Chansey friend graduate. The graduation involved a Nurse Joy placing a nurse's hat and an egg-shaped pendant on each graduating Chansey. As soon as the ceremony was over, Jessie went to take her leave when she was stopped by her Chansey friend, who offered to give her her nursing hat, suggesting that she believed that Jessie was more capable of being a nurse than her, and she felt bad that she got to graduate but Jessie didn't, even though Jessie was the one who essentially taught her everything. Jessie refused to take the hat, though, wanting the Chansey to be able to enjoy a nursing career even without her, leading the Chansey to then break her egg pendant in half and give Jessie one half so that they at least had something to remember each other by, since they would be separated if both of them weren't becoming nurses. James and Meowth tear up from this absolutely beautiful backstory, but their tears are overwhelmed by the sound of Jessie's stomach grumbling. Blissey immediately notices Jessie's hunger and wants to do anything it can to help her, so it decides to go into the storeroom and take every single piece of food and load it onto a cart for Team Rocket to carry. However, it leaves Team Rocket to do the carrying on their own, much to Jessie's dismay, although she did appreciate the gesture. The next day, Ash and the gang wake up extremely hungry, as, they went to bed hungry, leading them to complain extra loud when they find almost no food to eat the next morning, as Blissey only served them like a little piece of food that was left. That was literally all that was left. Nurse Joy hears Ash and the gang's complaints, especially Ash's, and questions Blissey on where all the food went, but she doesn't respond. So she goes to check herself, and obviously finds the storeroom empty. So she checks the security cameras, and finds footage of last night, revealing that Blissey was the culprit, who had taken all the food. And fortunately for Team Rocket, they weren't caught on any of the storeroom cameras, so they were completely innocent, at least in the eyes of Nurse Joy. Nurse Joy is initially very angry with Blissey, obviously, questioning why the fuck she took all the food. But her anger quickly turns to concern, as she warns Blissey that what she just did could threaten her nursing career, because she could get fired. Meanwhile, Team Rocket surprisingly hadn't decimated all of the food yet, and were spying on the Pokémon Center, making sure that she wouldn't get in trouble for giving them all the food. And when they saw that she was, this led James to suggest helping the Blissey get out of trouble, stating that since Jessie had so few friends, she should be careful not to lose the few that she did have. Jessie doesn't even get mad at James's little insult, and agrees with him that they should help out her friend. So they come up with a plan to essentially out themselves as being the true culprits by claiming that they tricked Blissey into giving them all the food. And that's what they proceed to do as they land their balloon in front of the Pokemon Center and announce with a megaphone that they had just dropped all the food that they stole, as they proceed to lay all the food on the ground. This loud-ass announcement obviously makes Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy rush out of the Pokemon Center, leading Team Rocket to restate that they in fact stole the food and do their motto. Ash angrily cuts them off, being more angry than he fucking ever has before, demanding that they give the food back, leading even Brock and Misty to admit that Ash was kinda over-exaggerating here, as they looked on in embarrassment at Ash's rashness. And Ash's anger actually gives Team Rocket the idea to not only help Blissey, but try and get a little benefit out of the situation themselves as well, and demand that they would only give back the food if Ash and the gang gave them all their Pokemon, along with all the Pokemon in the Pokemon Center, thinking that the hungry Ash would be desperate enough to give away all the Pokemon. But nah, even in his hunger, Ash would never do that. He proceeds to deny Team Rocket, along with Nurse Joy. And all the arguing that ensues from this causes Blissey to come out of the Pokemon Center and immediately spot Jessie and begin running up to her, leading Jessie to tell her to stop, explaining that if Nurse Joy found out that Blissey and Jessie were friends, then Blissey could get fired. However, Blissey didn't care and continued toward Jessie, so Jessie got a little desperate and decided to send out her Arbok and Lickitung to try and scare the Blissey away by intimidating them, but this didn't work, so Jessie got even more desperate, and although she obviously didn't want to, she ordered Lickitung and Arbok to attack Blissey. Arbok and Lickitung go a bit harder than she was expecting though, so she yells at Arbok and Lickitung, despite them doing exactly what she asked. In panic that this meant that Blissey now would no longer like her at all. Like, yeah, she wanted to scare her away, but she didn't want to completely harm their entire relationship, or just harm Blissey in general. Despite the relentless beating that Blissey took, it still wanted to be with Jessie and trudged on. This led Nurse Joy to believe that Blissey was trying to fight Team Rocket so that she could redeem herself for losing all the food to them, unbeknownst to her that Blissey just wanted to be with Jessie. Jessie gets Arbok and Lickitung to attack Blissey once again, though ensures that they would be lighter attacks this time, as Lickitung picks up Blissey with its tongue and lightly slams it against the ground, and Arbok gives it a little nibble as opposed to a full-on bite. Of course, Blissey still doesn't give up, unaware of why Jessie was trying to keep her away. So Jessie gets even more desperate and threatens to literally shoot the Blissey with a rocket launcher as she shoots at the ground to show that she was indeed serious. She really didn't want to have to do this, and she didn't want to ruin her friendship with Blissey, but she also didn't want to ruin Blissey's career, so she was going to do everything in her power to make sure that didn't happen. While Jessie was occupied with all this, James and Meowth taunted Ash for letting the Blissey take all of the beating today, as opposed to him. and Meowth then uses a mechanical hand to grab Pikachu in an attempt to capture him. However, Pikachu is quickly able to escape by using one singular Thunderbolt, falling right back into Ash's arms. Nurse Joy then ran to Blissey, attempting to shield her from the rocket launcher and explaining to her that due to her supposed bravery against Team Rocket, Nurse Joy would make sure that Blissey wouldn't get in trouble for giving Team Rocket the food, and therefore she could keep her nursing career. Jessie immediately drops the bazooka and cheers when she hears this, which finally alerts the Blissey to Jessie's true intentions of why she was trying to hold her back, being to help her keep her job, and this makes the Blissey cry tears of joy. This touching moment is interrupted by Ash's stomach growling as he reminds everyone that they still had to take out Team Rocket and get back all the food, so he sends out his Squirtle and Chikorita and has his Pikachu use Thunderbolt on Jessie's Arbok, has his Chikorita use Razor Leaf on Jessie's Lickitung, and then has his Squirtle use Water Gun on Team Rocket themselves. However, all these attacks weren't enough to send Team Rocket blasting off, and they decided to try and escape with all the food, because even though they couldn't get any Pokemon, they might as well try and escape with something. However, Chikorita uses her Razor Leaf to pop the Meowth balloon and cut the rope that was attaching the food to the bottom of the balloon, sending the food down to the ground and sending Team Rocket blasting off into the ocean. As Blissey looks up into the sky and sees Team Rocket blast off, she envisions Jessie, thanking her for wanting to help her save her job. She then turns her attention to Ash, who was currently hugging all of the food, and decides that she should make it up to them by making a huge feast, which she proceeds to do. However, when she brings out all the food trays, Ash and the gang initially panic, assuming that she was going to drop the trays again, but thankfully she doesn't, and they're all able to enjoy a nice meal. The episode then ends with one last scene from Team Rocket, who were currently sitting on their balloon basket in the middle of the ocean, depressed that they didn't have any food, but happy that they had at least let Blissey keep her job.